Tat, that, aho is said, aksharam, infallible, Brahma, the supreme, sarva karanam, all causes, karanam, the supreme cause, Vishnu Dhamma, the spiritual abode of Vishnu, Param, the supreme, Sakshat, without doubt, Purushasya, of the Purusha incarnation, Mahatmanaha, of the Mahavishnu. Translation, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, who's not mentioned in the verse, by the way, is therefore said to be the original cause of all causes. Thus, the spiritual abode of Vishnu is eternal without a doubt, and it is also the abode of Mahavishnu, the origin of all manifestations. Purport. Lord Mahavishnu, who is resting in Yoga Nidra, in the causal ocean, and creating innumerable universes by his breathing process, only temporarily appears in the Mahat Tattva for the temporary manifestation of the material worlds. He is a plenary portion of Lord Krishna, and thus, although he is not different from Lord Krishna, he's different. His formal appearance in the material world as an incarnation is temporary. The original form of the personality of Godhead is actually the Swarupa, the real form. And he eternally resides in the Vaikuntha world, Vishnu Loka. The word Mahat Manaha is used here to indicate Mahavishnu, and the other one is kind of like not real, right? His real manifestation is Lord Krishna, who is called Parama, as confirmed in the Brahma Samhita. And the phrase at the last line is same as in this verse, and thus indirect Krishna. So it's okay, Prabhupada writing what he wrote. Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchit Ananda Vigraha Adir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. The Supreme Lord is Krishna, the original personality of Godhead, known as Govinda. His form is eternal, full of bliss and knowledge, and he is the original cause of all causes. Thus ends chapter 11. Calculation of time from the atom. Few things. I thought it'd be nice to go back to the beginning of the chapter, calculation of time by the atom, and refresh your memory what Maitreya is saying about the atom, because it relates to Mahavishnu. What it says, text 1 translation, the material manifestation's ultimate particle, which is indivisible and not formed into a body, is called the atom, Paramanu. It exists always. Note, it doesn't come into being and go out of being. It exists. So what happens at cosmic annihilation? It exists always as an invisible identity, even after the dissolution of all forms. And by the way, doesn't have form. It's not formed into a body, at least. The material body is but a combination of such atoms, but it is misunderstood by the common man. So during cosmic annihilation, this is speaking of cosmic manifestation. What about during cosmic annihilation? What's the status of the atom? Well, it's eternally existing. And it may not be manifest. Vyakta and avyakta. But even in the avyakta state, it doesn't become zero or go into oblivion or something like that. The atom, again, exists always as an indivisible entity. Indivisible, it can't be divided. Its smallest particle of matter, whether in the manifest or unmanifest state, whatever that is. In other words, what material science calls an atom may not be what an atom is. Small point. But Parama Anu, supremely small, whatever that is, it's indivisible. Whatever is indivisible, that's Parama Anu, in the form of Prakriti. And Prakriti can be manifest and not manifest. And then different atoms get together and form something, and then some of those atoms get together and form something, and then you start building the universe. If you're Brahma, you can build the universe with atoms and combinations of atoms. And then time, from earlier sections of the Bhagavatam, as well as later sections of this third canto, time is needed to bring things together. And time is needed to dissolve things, because time is the destroyer of all things. But the effect of time destroying all things is not like the sledgehammer. It's just the time is needed for matter to come together. And when time is withdrawn, then matter dissolves. And its dissolution is into an unmanifest state, but the particles still are there, at least in an unmanifest state. Unmanifest can mean different things. It can mean I don't see it. Or it can mean it goes into a subtler than the manifest state position. And then time energy makes it, like Pradhan becomes Mahatattva. And Mahatattva has separated energies and so forth and so on. And the reason going there is it's certainly important for understanding the chapter, and it's also important for understanding the final verse of the chapter. Because there are certain truths, tattvas, or truths, that exist eternally. And Prakriti is one of them. Time is another. Jiva is another. Hari is another. And then there's one that's temporary. Karma. 5 subject matter. According to Baladev Vidyabhusan, Bhagavad Gita can be understood through that lens of those 5 items. So, manifest or not manifest, Prakriti is one of the building blocks. And then Hari, because you don't have building without even you have the ingredients, the buildings don't get built. So how do you invest powers in different persons to do things and so forth? And one of those persons who is invested with powers to build is Mahavishnu. So let's read again what it says here. This is the first sentence of the purport. Lord Mahavishnu, who is resting in Yoga Nidra on the causal ocean and creating innumerable universes by his breathing process, only temporarily appears in the Mahatattva for the temporary manifestation of all material worlds. And then again, his formal appearance in the material world is as an incarnation is temporary. He's not temporary, but his manifestation here is temporary for the period of one universe's worth of time. So in the previous section we were hearing the duration of Lord Brahma. And Lord Brahma's duration of life is as long as so many two parardas, and that's so many. And then Brahma doesn't go out of existence, but the universe is withdrawn, and he as Brahma is also withdrawn. The soul doesn't go out of existence, it's eternal. So then what happens with the universe, or the ingredients of the universe? It goes back into an unmanifest state. Let's going back to the first verse. The phrase the Prabhupada uses is important. Dissolution of all forms. So the all forms are dissolved. The energy still, Prakriti still exists. It's just in a different state. It's just not in a manifesting a form state. It's not manifesting a form state. And it can be differentiated or it can be undifferentiated state, pradhan. So I'm puzzled. Maybe somebody can help me. The Vishnu forms, they're incarnations. That language is being used here. They're incarnations or manifestations of. They're eternal. But they're sometimes not manifest. So we understand from Bhagavad Gita that the spiritual world, here it's called Vishnu Loka, the spiritual world, when this place is annihilated, that place isn't annihilated because it's eternal. And in this universe, there's one such place. Within the universe, there's one such place. The abode of Kshirodaksha Vishnu. And that abode isn't destroyed when the universe is destroyed. So everything is like a vacuum cleaner, it's dissolved. And that place remains. And the Lord remains. And Garbhodaksha Vishnu, he is reclining in the lower half of the universe where there's the Garbhodak ocean, but the universe is dissolved. So what exactly happens with Garbhodaksha Vishnu when the universe is dissolved? Well, he's not manifested in the other bottom half of the universe because there's no universe, bottom half or upper half. I don't recall reading anything that says that he becomes again unmanifest, but it's even more specifically, he is an expansion of Mahavishnu, so one might argue or infer that he's withdrawn again within the body of Mahavishnu because he is an expansion from Mahavishnu. So now comes, at the end of the universe is, plural, where Prakriti is dissolved, or they're no longer in a manifest state, where does that energy go? Does the energy go again as Mahavishnu is glancing over Pradhan into a Pradhan state, and the Pradhan state is not within Mahavishnu, as Ramadevi is within Mahavishnu? The Yoga Nidra state means she, Ramadevi, is within Mahavishnu, and they're enjoying dalliances, they're enjoying their eternal pastimes, not visible to others, but they're enjoying pastimes, he and his internal potency, and the reflection of his internal potency is Pradhan, or Chaya Devi, who Mahavishnu glances over. So when the material energy is withdrawn, universes collectively are finished. My understanding is that though all those elements go into undifferentiated state again and again, they resume the Pradhan state, just transformation of states. So there's Pradhan, not differentiated yet as Mahatattva. So the question I have is, Mahavishnu is temporarily manifest. And at what point is he withdrawn? Because the universe is recycled. And recycle and recycle and recycle. So there's no beginning and there's no end to the recycling. So at what point in time as we know it is the eternal form of Mahavishnu not manifest? Is my question clear? Should I say it again? Any of our scholarly devotees have an answer to that question? Somebody can volunteer to look up the answer to that question? Because I got lots of homework to do with other things. If you come across the answer before tomorrow morning's class, you can let me know. Because I don't have an answer. I mean, I'll just read it again. Because twice it's stated in the purport. Mahavishnu only temporarily appears in the Mahatattva for the temporary manifestation of the material worlds. Again, his formal appearance in the material world as an incarnation is temporary. He's not temporary, but his appearance is temporary. So when is it not manifest within the material world, is the question. The form of Mahavishnu. So I thought I would read two verses from Brahma Samhita, because in the purport, one Brahma Samhita verse, the invocation verse, is identified. Because one of the reasons is Krishna is the cause of all causes, sarva karana karanam, which is directly in the verse for this morning, as is directly in the verse of the invocation verse, or the wording of the invocation verse in Brahma Samhita. So there are two additional verses where Mahavishnu is spoken of directly, not in the purports, but directly in verses of Brahma Samhita. And I want to read them. Text 12, 5:12, Brahma Samhita. The Sanskrit starts, Narayana sa Bhagavan, apastasmat sanatanat. The same Mahavishnu is spoken of by the name Narayana in this mundane world. For that eternal person, from that eternal person, has sprung the vast expanse of water of the spiritual causal ocean. the subjective portion of Sankarshan. So this is Bhaktisiddhanta's language. Subjective portion, as opposed to an objective portion, I guess. Subjective portion. Sankarshana atmaka. Sankarshana atmaka. Subjective portion of Sankarshan. So, I spent some time trying to, what does he mean by this? Subjective portion. And my understanding is, after doing that research, it's kala. So there's a direct expansion, angsa, and then there's a kala. That's like clear different languages. Angsa means a part, like living entity is an angsa. Mami vangsa jiva loke is a part, fragmental part. And the direct expansions of Krishna are parts of him. The direct expansions like Narayana is a direct expansion, or the Chaturvyuha forms are direct expansions, they're angsas. An expansion of the expansion is kala, or subjective. That's his language, but that's my unpacking of his language. So when he says subjective portion, it means kala. Kala means an expansion of an expansion. Okay. The subjective portion of Sankarshan, who abides in Paravyom. Paravyom is the spiritual sky. So Narayana. That's the sequence. Krishna, Balaram, the Chaturvyuha of the Vaikuntha realm. Then the expansion from Sankarshan is Narayan. And from Narayan comes the second Chaturvyuha. Then comes the Purusha avatars. Anybody lost? You're lost. Okay, we'll do it again. It's not a chronological, it's an ontological sequence. There's Swayam Bhagavan, Krishna's to Bhagavan Swayam, that Krishna is the original, Canto 1, Chapter 3. And then the question that's from Canto 1, Chapter 1 is describe the forms of the Lord that emanate from the original form. So Sutta Goswami does that, starting with the three Purusha. But the three Purusha expansions, where are the expansions from, or of whom are the expansions? They're the Purusha forms, Mahavishnu, Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, Kshirodakshaya Vishnu, the three Vishnus, they're expansions of Sankarshan, of the second quadruple of the Vaikuntha realm. The second quadruple of the Vaikuntha, now we're going backwards. The second, in the Vaikuntha realm, there are these four. Vasudeva, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. And they're expansions of Narayana. Narayana expands into the Chaturvyuha. One of the Chaturvyuha, Sankarshan, expands as the Purusha avatars for the purpose of creation. That's the function. They're eternal forms, but they're temporarily manifest because the universe, the creation, is temporarily manifest. So there's the angsa, living entities and direct expansions of Krishna, angsas, and there's kala, expansions of the expansion. So Vishnu forms have that terminology or nomenclature. Kala. A portion of a plenary portion, an expansion of an expansion, or in Bhaktisiddhanta's language, a subjective portion. So, back to the subjective portion of Sankarshan, that means Vishnu forms, such as Mahavishnu, who abides in Paravyom. Sankarshan abides in Paravyom. The above supreme Purusha, with thousands of subjective portions, reposes in the state of divine sleep, yoga nidra, in the waters of the spiritual causal ocean. So you can look it up later. You know, if you're scratching your head right now, you can go back and look text 12 of Brahma Samhita. The purport is very short. Yoga nidra, or divine sleep, is spoken of as ecstatic trance, which is of the nature of bliss, of the true subjective personality, meaning Mahavishnu. The above mentioned Ramadevi is Yoga Nidra in the form of Yogamaya. He doesn't explain. It's just getting used to his terminology and the terminology of Brahma Samhita. The reason I picked this is seeing what Brahma Samhita has to say about Mahavishnu, because here's what the Bhagavatam says about Mahavishnu, and Prabhupada is making reference to Krishna being the Sarva Karana Karanam. So Mahavishnu is a Karana, but Krishna is the cause of Karanas, who's the cause of material creation. Looking to see if there's puzzled faces. It's all clear, right? Oh boy. Okay. Now, the additional place that Mahavishnu is spoken of is in Brahma's prayers, text 48. You all know this verse because we recite it every time we have yagyas. You can say it together if you know the verse, text 48. Yes, yai kanishvishita kala matavilambhya jivanti loma vidaja jagadantanataha Vishnur mahansiha yasya kalabhishesho govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. Kalabhishesha. Kala, there's that word again. Kalabhishesha. In this case, Bhaktisiddhanta has chosen to translate it as particular plenary portion or expansion. So the translation, Brahma and other lords of the mundane worlds, comma, appearing from the pores of the hair of Mahavishnu. So what appears from the pores of the hair of Mahavishnu is the seeds of the universe, golden seeds. Sometimes he uses the language golden sperms, golden seeds from the body of Mahavishnu. So within those seeds there's the potential of a whole universe. So he just is mentioning Brahma and other lords of the, because Brahma's manifested first and the Devas don't manifest until later sequentially, but the seed is there within the original seed. And this is important, the living entities, this is sequential, the living entities are still in the body of Mahavishnu. I'll say it again. Living entities are still in the samasti, the totality of living entities. Universes are withdrawn. Living entities are within the body of Mahavishnu in a dormant state or sleeping state or susupti state for the period of one inhalation. And then in the exhalation, there go the seeds of the universes. And then in time, it's a sequence. Garbhodakshayi Vishnu expands to enter into the universe where the seeds have had, Bhaktisiddhanta's language is conglomerate, or clinging to those seeds are the elements. Let's do it again. Mahavishnu glances. Zoom, zoom, zoom. There goes his glance. And his glance bears a name, Shambhu, the name of his glance. Ramadevi understands his desire behind his glance. He wants to create. He wants to give some service to Chaya Devi, her expansion or her reflection. So he does, by glancing. And within the glance, which is Shambhu, comes two things. One universe worth of living entities. Not all living entities. One universe worth of all living entities are carried in the glance and time. And so, with that agitation of the living entities in time, pradhans start to separate out into the elements, and the breathing, the seeds of the universes, zoom, 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 enter into this now differentiated feature of material energy. And those elements, now differentiated, start to cling to or conglomerate around the seeds, and things can't happen until Garbhodakshayi Vishnu is expanded. And when Garbhodakshayi Vishnu is expanded, then he perspires, makes the Garbhodak ocean within each universe, because there's a Garbhodakshayi Vishnu per universe, and then Brahma appears and things start to happen. But things can't fully happen till there's devas, and that's another sequence of the manifesting of the universe. But the devas, go back to a read. The verse 48 translation. Brahma and other lords of the mundane worlds, appearing from the pores of hair of Mahavishnu. So that's the seeds of the universes. All of that potential is within Mahavishnu. So, not only the demigods, but the power of the demigods. It's all there within Mahavishnu. Brahma and the other lords of the mundane worlds, appearing from the pores of hair of Mahavishnu, remain alive for as long as the duration of one exhalation of the latter, Mahavishnu. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, of whose subjective portion Mahavishnu is the portion of portion. It takes a while. You have to go over it like 50 times and then start to sort it out and compare to what, because the Brahma Samhita is precisely in accord with Srimad Bhagavatam and vice versa. So it takes a while to match them, what Bhagavatam says and what Brahma Samhita says. And now we'll go back to this morning's verse. Final verse of this entire chapter. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. That's the Sarvakarana Karanam person. So he's not mentioned by name, but he's mentioned by function. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, is therefore said to be the original cause of all causes. Thus, the spiritual abode of Vishnu, mentioned in the verses Vishnu Loka, or Vishnu Dham, the spiritual abode of Vishnu is eternal, without a doubt. And it is also the abode of Mahavishnu, the origin of all manifestations, although the origin of all manifestations is temporarily manifest. Even it's spelled out, it's puzzling. What to speak of if it's not spelled out? Hallelujah. Praise the Lord. So, is this valuable? Wouldn't be in the Bhagavatam if it's not valuable. Must be valuable. Is it necessary to understand all this, or you can't go back to Godhead? No, it's not necessary to understand. Whew. But it's there because it gives us a picture of reality, and transcendental reality is the source of the temporary reality, or appearance of reality. So there's a connection between this and the source. And it gives scientific explanation. Listening to morning conversations, and this morning Prabhupada was yelling at the guy. 6 times. This is not religion. This is science. And then the guy kept saying religion. And Prabhupada raised his voice. It's science. He was trying to explain, in this particular case, he was trying to explain science means, then he explained, science is there's theory and there's experience. Forget the example he gave. Anyway, this is something. So the Bhagavad Gita verse, the topic was reincarnation, and he's saying it doesn't matter this religion, that religion. The boy becomes the baby becomes a boy. The boy becomes a young man. Young man becomes an old man. That's not this religion, that religion. It's fact. It's an observable fact. It's a science. And the man kept saying, well, that's the Hindu perspective. Prabhupada slammed him. It has nothing to do with. It's fact. And the seat of consciousness, the entity that has the continued sense, and gives up that body and accepts the next body. And science. I've heard this before, but Prabhupada said, this recording, I remember 6 months old, I was in the lap of my sister, she was knitting. I can remember as vivid as anything, but that body is gone. I don't remember 6 months, but Prabhupada remembers 6 months. Memory is there, and the continued sense that I exist is there, but the body is gone. And so it's logical, it's not proof, it's logical, therefore, deha antara praptir. Antara, you give up this body, take the next body, etc. So after this body, there's another body. But it's observable. There's authority and there's observation. And these two things make up, as Prabhupada was saying, that's science. So how do we understand all these things? What's observable about Mahavishnu and Ramadevi and the glance of Mahavishnu and Pradhan and the sun crossing one atom for what duration of time? But there's a science to it, and there are some people that have a capacity, so we discussed this. When there's capacity, then science can be understood. And if there isn't capacity, science can't be understood. That's our practical experience. So where's the qualified Vyasadeva or Kapiladev or knowers of science that can explain this or directly experience it and then confirm it? Yes, I've experienced it. Because we can't experience it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It's common sense. But there's the knowers of the truth have the capacity. At least Vyasadeva has the capacity to experience, and then there's the authority behind what he writes, and therefore Bhagavatam is a commentary on Vedanta Sutra, which is a summation of all the Vedas, and therefore one can trace back to the Vedas so many things. And there must be corroboration between what the Vedas say and what Vedanta Sutra says and what Srimad Bhagavatam says. And who can understand the Vedas? Or say it differently, who can misinterpret the Vedas? Learn Sanskrit, become a scholar, and you can misinterpret the Vedas, no problem. Or come up with your own interpretation and so forth. So what's a poor fellow like us supposed to do? Chant Hare Krishna. And hear Srimad Bhagavatam and worship the deity form of the Lord and serve the devotees and reside in Naperville. Or Carbondale, So, he didn't get it. Oh, you got it. Okay. And if we can't live in Vrindavan or the holy place, then we mentally reside there. So those 5 are what we do. It starts with chant Hare Krishna, take prasadam. Chant Hare Krishna, take prasadam. Offer obeisances. Manmana bhava mad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru. You do basic things over and over and purify and become eligible to understand something more than what you presently understand, which is not much. But it's purifying that we have faith in and we have experience in. And slowly. It's not just the ticket back to Godhead is you can understand all this complicated stuff. But it's good to sharpen our process of meditating upon Krishna, just how great he is and how this complex universe has its complexity is rooted in the Supreme. And their knowers of the truth understand the connection between this and that and the other thing. It's very simple. The cause of all causes means what cause and effect. It's very simple. Just follow Prabhupada. It's very simple. Cause means you wiggle something here and something over there wiggles. That's the effect. Cause, effect. So this is the effect. And what's the cause? I can't see the cause. not discernible from my blunt senses. So then I go to authority. And I ask my authority, what is this? What's the cause of this? What's the cause of, and this is the effect. What is it? And how to understand, how does it come into being? Cause and effect. That search for truth, search for the absolute truth. The Bhagavatam is giving us this summum bonum. Krishna is the cause of all causes. And then there's details and details that advanced spiritual scientist and qualified Brahmana can understand. So if we may not be so qualified, we should at least be Brahminical in principle, and then the eligibility to have things understood becomes possible. And without that purity, it's just not possible. Not possible. You can respond in n number of different ways, but it's not going to be something that you factually understand without purity. So we strive for purity and the mercy of Krishna. Okay, end of chapter 11, heading into chapter 12 tomorrow. Premananda.
So much. Thank you. I read some time back that this Brahma Samhita that we are reading, the translation and explanation, it was written by one of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's scholarly disciples. Is that, so I don't know, somehow the translation and explanations are not like that easily understandable in some places. And so, I assumed that if it was his disciple who translated it, certainly Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur must have reviewed it before that became a book. And I felt like I needed something which is much more straightforward, easy to understand. So I came across Bhanuswami's translation. I came to know there is such a book, and I got that. And Bhanuswami is more like a man of minimum words. And
a man of what?
I feel like he always says very precise, small translations, more than like elaboration, So anyway, that book I got, but it was also not
so clear.
So I just wondered, is it really true that it is Bhaktisiddhanta's disciple who translated Brahma Samhita?
There is an understanding that many of the writings of Bhaktisiddhanta were his, and vice versa. They were two peas in a pod, and they shared composition and editing of compositions freely, and many times they went under the name of Bhaktisiddhanta, but it was his writings. There's no definitive statement that this is one of those. Whatever his disciple, who was the scholarly disciple, who was the professor in Orissa, who, anyway, without details, they freely exchanged. And there was a full alignment in their understanding, as well as their elevated language. It's not that Bhaktisiddhanta didn't have elevated language. But so the answer to your question is, I don't know. It's possible, but I've not read anything that says definitively one way or the other. It doesn't really matter. Ultimate doesn't matter because Bhaktisiddhanta proved it. Full stop. So who originated the language is inconsequential, really. Yes. For your information, you'll be happy or unhappy to know. A major part of my going for Ayurvedic treatment is to work further on a book that makes Brahma Samhita intelligible. Yeah, it's been stalled in the road because I get really involved in other things. Let's see how far I get. But there's multiple sources besides Bhanu Swami's. Bhanu Swami's is a translation of Jiva Goswami's commentary, and Bhaktisiddhanta's is a commentary derived from Jiva Goswami's commentary. And Bhaktivinoda wrote, and so there's many resources. I'm going to be, absorbed in consulting different, and trying to make it, on the one hand, and on the other hand, comprehensive but intelligible. Tattva Sandarbha is after that. It's very important. Foundational. Anything else? Yes.
One of the things that you read, Brahma Samhita, the translation, this is a comment. 2 days ago when we talked about Yoga Nidra and Mahavishnu, you had mentioned that we may not know, but then, he's still having pastimes with his internal potency. And in that translation to text 12, Brahma Samhita, there was a sentence that said, Ramadevi is Yoga Nidra, something to that effect.
Yes.
So I thought it related to that day's discussion.
Yeah, it's relevant.
My second thing is that is there a role for the first Chaturvyuha expansion?
Is there a role for?
The first Chaturvyuha, like Chaturvyuha expansions.
Satya Yuga? Yeah. He expands the other members of the Chaturvyuha.
Okay.
That's one of his roles.
Mm. And I think the third one I wanted to ask is, often we say, the Mayavadis use the word anirvachaniya, but when things get a little fuzzy, they say this is anirvachaniya. But even in our texts, we use this word achintya. When things get a little unclear, we say, like for instance, in this sequence, Krishna is non-different from the Chaturvyuha expansions or Narayana, but yet they are different. So we use the term achintya to,
So it seems like a cop-out to you.
Yes.
Whitewash. Sorry, Charlie, you can't understand it as achintya. At the same time, there's an explanation. It's not like nirvachaniya. You can't say it. There's nothing to be said because it can't be said. It can be said. Then to understand it with a pea brain, it's achintya. But here it is. From this angle, that angle, the other angle. 10 angles. Now, do you understand it? No, I don't understand it. Okay. Because the pea brain can't understand that which is achintya. So it can't be conceived of with the mind, but it can be revealed in fullness of variety, form, etc. There's the distinction. So here, for example, God has no name. Prabhupada said so many times. It's true. Because it's a Vedic statement. God has no name. And yet he has many names. So is it, if it's this, it's not that. If it's that, it's not this. It can't be both that and this. So how can, Krishna is unborn, takes birth, the Queen Kunti. That's a contradiction. It's either this or that. So he's both. He's unborn yet takes birth. That's a pastime. And so there's an example of something that's a fact, but it's for our pea brain, it's inconceivable. It's contradictory. It's just, if it's this, it's not that. But it can be explained. So in that sense, it's conceivable, but our grasp of that which is inconceivable may be beyond our grasp. So now what to do about such things? Become purified, and then it becomes knowable, which is different than nirvachaniya. Okay? Yes?
Quadruple expansion, and then we hear about the second quadruple.
Yes. No. There's the first expansion is in Krishna Loka, or Goloka Vrindavan. The second expansion is in Vaikuntha. And there's many Vaikuntha planets, but it's one expansion per Vaikuntha planet. What per planet? But is the Sankarshan in this Vaikuntha planet the same as the Sankarshan? Yes, it's just differently manifest. Now the sun is going directly in my eye, so I can't see you. Just know that I can't see you. Go ahead.
There's an online question by Kalpataru Mataji.
By whom?
Kalpataru.
Okay.
Kalpataru Mataji.
Okay.
Naperville. Yeah. Thank you so much for such wonderful description and explanation of the strenuous subject matter of time. Sometimes I think I've done so much service and then spend my valuable time dealing with my tantrum of why this and why that and all the petty things. Thinking of Mahavishnu's viewpoint, it is so insignificant, but Krishna is merciful that he still rewards us for whatever insignificant we do. Now we learn eternity, which is a true perspective, and have a very different view of life. How to develop that long-term focus to really see everything with that perspective.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And then repeat. Purification. That's how to. And then take the method of purification. The process of bhakti brings the purification. You have something.
That has really been bothering.
From where?
From your evening presentations,
From which?
from yesterday evening's presentation.
Yesterday evening, sure.
So I was really awestruck by Prabhupada's statement about valor and complete dependency. That's really, it's really stayed with me since Friday when you presented it. And yesterday, in response to a question, you were speaking about Draupadi and how she was holding on to her sari. And then when she let go and completely depended on Krishna, then he showed up. Now, of course, we can understand that. And in her case, being a pure devotee, we can understand that even when she was doing that effort of holding on to a sari, she was still completely dependent. So this
It's relationship. Don't go too far with it. It's not like you can't do practical stuff because that's a demonstration that you don't have full dependence on Krishna. You do practical stuff. It's a relationship. You know, and I gave the example, Vishnu waited as Prahlad was being tossed off a cliff to see what's he going to do. It's a relationship. It's not like he wasn't ready to catch him unless he did this instead of that. It's a relationship. And he doesn't need our endorsement to have relationships as he likes relationships. It's according to the person. So you're right. So now what? Krishna should have showed up before she raised both her hands.
Well, I was thinking more in terms of our bhakti practice has this parallel effort and mercy.
Oh, absolutely.
So,
she didn't do anything wrong. And we also make effort and at the same time be full dependent. And then your effort may need some adjustment depending upon the relationship that you have with Krishna. I mean, take the example of Prabhupada trying to start the Hare Krishna movement in the West. Ordeal after ordeal after ordeal after ordeal after ordeal. There was no lack of full dependence. So why didn't Krishna just give him the Hare Krishna movement, day one? It's a relationship, strengthening his determination, etc. I'm sorry because the sunlight is difficult. We'll end there. Oh, there was a question. If she's listening, someone asked a question. Their son had a question yesterday. Huh? Kalpataru. Online. Kalpataru. She's online. Okay. Your son had a question. This is the answer to your son's question. How come it is said that Kunti was the mother of the 5 Pandavas when she wasn't? Kunti was the mother of 3 of the 5, and Madri was the mother of the other 2. So why do we say Kunti was the mother of the 5 Pandavas? Answer. Her son is correct. According to Mahabharata, Madri received the mantra one time, and she called the Ashwini Kumaras, and 2 sons were born to twin sons. And it was calculated specifically by Madri. Anyway, however, the biological mother is not the only mother. That's the answer. For example, again and again, Prabhupada would quote the verse, Adau Mata. There's the original mother, there's 6 more. The Guru Patni, Raja Patni, the wife of the king, the wife of a Brahmana, they're mothers too. It said the cow is mother. So Kunti, she wasn't one of those 6 besides the Adau Mata, but she raised them. She was the mother in the absence of Madri. She was their mother. So she wasn't the biological mother of 2 of them, but she was the mother of all 5 of them. Ask her. Or ask them. They weren't like, oh, you're not a mother, so take a hike. It's a relationship of mother to the dependent child. And they treated her in that way, and she treated them in that way, regardless of who was the biological mother.
Here's a comment by Gopal Hari Prabhu. Thank you again, Maharaj, for your illuminating discussion on Vedic science. It is very helpful and provides much needed guidance in this difficult preaching field.
What?